People said the house felt older than it looked. Not in a charming way, not creaky floors or peeling paint. It was newer than most on the block, built clean and square in the early 80s, with beige siding in a backyard that sloped just slightly downward, like it was leaning away from something it didn't want to remember. When the family first toured it, the father noticed how quiet the yard was. No birds, no squirrels. The grass was healthy, green even, but it grew too evenly, like it was being watched. The real estate agent talked fast, too fast, kept the conversation moving, steering them inside whenever they lingered near the back door. And right before the papers were signed, when the keys were already in her hand, she hesitated, just for a second. "There's one thing the previous owners insisted I pass along," she said. "They were very clear." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Never dig up the backyard." That was it. No explanation, no disclosure form, nothing written down, just a sentence dropped like a stone into still water. The parents exchanged a look, the kind couples share when they decide silently not to rock the boat. They laughed it off. Old superstition. Maybe someone buried trash back there. Maybe a forgotten utility line. They bought the house, and they kept the rule. Years went by. The son grew up in that house. He learned to ride his bike in the driveway, scraped his knees on the sidewalk out front. He played in the backyard plenty, but never with shovels, never with holes. His parents were firm about it in a way they weren't about anything else. No sandbox, no garden beds, no fence posts dug deeper than a few inches. When he asked why, they always gave the same answer. Because. Not angry, not afraid, just final. At night sometimes, the boy thought he heard things from his bedroom window. Not voices exactly, more like movement under the earth, a shifting, a slow, patient sound, as if something deep below was turning over in its sleep. When he mentioned it once, his mother closed the window and told him it was just pipes. The years kept moving. The parents aged. The rule remained. And then, as these stories tend to go, they were gone. First the father, then the mother not long after. The house passed to the son. By then, he was a practical man. Bills, repairs, property value. The neighborhood had modernized around the house, and the backyard suddenly felt wasted. Everyone else had decks, fire pits, pools. He remembered the warning, thought about it for maybe a day. Then he called a contractor. The digging started early in the morning, machines chewing into the soil, tearing through roots that hadn't seen daylight in decades. At first, it was all ordinary. Dirt, stones, old glass bottles from a time forgotten. Then, the excavator stopped dead. The bucket scraped against something solid, too smooth to be rock, too wide to be debris. They cleared around it by hand. Concrete. Not poured like a foundation, not cracked or sunken. It was pristine, thick, reinforced. A perfect rectangular shape buried far deeper than any backyard structure had a reason to be. Someone joked about a fallout shelter. Someone else said time capsule. No one suggested leaving it alone. They cut into it. The concrete split open with a sound like a breath being released. Inside was a chamber, stone-lined, dry, untouched by moisture or time. At its center sat a coffin. Dark wood, iron bands. The metal cold and uncorroded, like it had never known air. The lid was sealed. It took effort to open, tools slipping, sweat dripping into the tomb. When it finally gave way, they all leaned in. The man inside looked asleep. Not decayed, not skeletal, His skin was pale in a way that didn't belong to the dead, stretched tight over sharp features. His lips were darker than they should have been. His hands rested neatly over his chest. One worker laughed nervously. Another stepped back. Then the chest rose. Just a little. Eyes opened, and the world broke. The thing in the coffin moved with a violence that felt wrong, like something fast in a place where speed didn't belong. It grabbed the nearest man, pulled him close, and fed. No frenzy, no struggle. Just hunger answered. Blood spilled into the dirt that had sealed it away. Another man screamed, tried to climb out of the pit. The thing followed, moving like it already knew how gravity worked here. By the time the rest escaped, tools abandoned, ladders overturned, the yard was silent again, except for the sound of someone breathing. They never found the workers. No blood outside the yard, no signs of a struggle beyond the pit, just missing men and unanswered calls. The police searched the house, the street, the nearby woods. Dogs lost the scent at the property line, like it had simply stepped out of the world and into something else. The tomb was documented, photographed, then quietly filled back in. No one said vampire. No one said coffin. The report called it an unidentified underground structure. The son sold the house within the year, took a loss, refused to talk about why. But the neighborhood changed after that. Every few weeks, always just before dawn, someone would see him, standing at the edge of a yard, on a rooftop, watching from the shadows where streetlights didn't quite reach. Never attacking where he was seen, always somewhere else. Because the thing that had been buried there wasn't just hungry, it was careful. It had learned something while it slept beneath that yard. Learned patience, learned restraint, learned how long humans live, and how easily they forget. And now, after all those years underground, it's very, very hungry. If you enjoyed this story, make sure you subscribe for more slow burn horror told the way it's meant to be heard. New stories drop regularly, and each one is best experienced in the dark, with the volume up. And remember, if someone tells you not to dig in the backyard, they might be trying to save you. Sleep tight, and I'll see you in the next story.